Stream is up. Let me just make sure people are tuning in. Nope, can't be doing that. Well, I guess I'll. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Football Forecast, episode 7. We are back. I'm Austin Killough with my co-host Steve Killough.
Hey guys, what's going on?
And so we are back after week 1, or I guess week 2 officially, but really week 1 of the college football season. And it was an eventful weekend, probably one of the most eventful week 1s you could ever ask for. I got a lot to talk about today. The podcast is probably going to be a little bit longer. Hopefully, we can get some of you guys in our chat room to kind of guide us through what you want to talk about and what you think we should talk about, and just interact with us overall. Because, like I said, there's a lot to talk about. I don't know if we'll be able to get through all of it, but we definitely want to get through the most of it with you guys and whatever you guys want us to talk about. So, yeah, I don't know where we should start. If anybody in the chat wants us to start at some certain game, we can start there, but really it's up to you guys. Wherever you want to start. I don't know. I think we have 2 people on the chat right now on YouTube, so somebody there might want to say something. I guess the biggest thing that we should start with, the biggest thing this season, is would probably be Jalen Hurts' debut. I think that's a big thing that everybody was looking forward to, and it's also a pretty solid topic. But Jalen Hurts' debut at Oklahoma was immaculate. I mean, he was dead on. I mean, the guy basically looked exactly how we expected him to after being, kind of packed up for 2 seasons at Alabama, just kind of, being the guy where everybody says, you can't pass as well. You need to learn how to pass. Being that guy and coming to Oklahoma as a system quarterback now, making those wide open, non-contested passes and just watching them go in. And, even for rushing as much as he did, what was it, like 139 yards or something rushing like that?
Yeah.
That's insane. And even his one rushing touchdown where he ran, he jumped into the end zone, almost kicked the defender in the face. That was crazy. Oklahoma did amazing with Jalen Hurts, and I'm really excited to see what they do the rest of the season. I think that was probably my favorite narrative to watch this week. Even though our favorite teams played this week, honestly, nothing beat watching Jalen Hurts for me. I feel like that was probably the highlight of the whole weekend.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, definitely stole the show this weekend. Of course, having the benefit of playing in a game on a night when that was the only game on television. So, having the spotlight and doing well when you have the opportunity to do so in front of a national audience. I see early on that he is atop most people's Heisman watch list at number one, which is understandable considering what he accomplished and the fact that he did in front of a national audience. You would think that he would be atop the list. Of course, for what that's worth after one game, but you got to start somewhere. But yeah, I mean, he as far as individual performances, I think his definitely has to be at the top of the list of all the games that we saw this past weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he just looked like an NFL player out there playing with children. So I think that was probably the best narrative for me to watch this weekend. A lot of other things though. I think a lot of SEC fans are upset because of how weak the SEC was looking this week. And just 1 second, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and fix our little technical difficulties here. Don't worry about it. Just less than 2 minutes, and I will be right back. All right, guys, I'm back. We have fixed our little technical difficulty there. Yes, I hope those of you that are watching are still with us here. So yeah, we're back, and let's get back into it. So, as I was saying, I think a lot of SEC fans are upset this week because of mainly one thing. That we like to claim that the SEC is the toughest conference, and in reality, it is. It's the most physical conference. You can't dispute that. The SEC is the most physical, the toughest, the grittiest conference in all of college football. But now, Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12 fans are saying now that you can challenge the fact that it's the most physical, and because the SEC had so many upsets this week, so many losses to teams they shouldn't have really lost, or just I guess not even losses, just didn't perform as well as we like to see SEC teams should. That really starts. It doesn't peak, but it starts with Florida's win over Miami. It was really sloppy. I think obviously that we talked about it last week. You can chop that up to first week jitters, but it was a really sloppy type of win, especially for the defense, which is what we talk about when we're talking SEC. It was just a sloppy kind of defensive play. I'm glad that Florida was able to go out there and kind of get the job done. They out physicaled, Miami. They played more physical than Miami did. They were just tougher. They were a tougher team, and so I think honestly that you can chop that up to just first week jitters, having all those fumbles and drop passes and things like that. Because to me, Florida looked tougher. I don't know, to me. And but a lot of people disputed that, said, okay, SEC's slipping up. And then when we got to this weekend, I think the biggest one was probably Tennessee's upset, right? Or Georgia State's upset,
Yeah,
I
I
should
mean
say.
that's easily the biggest upset of the whole weekend. Um, Tennessee losing convincingly to a team that was 2-10 last year. Um, One of the group of five schools, one of the worst ones from last season, and Tennessee at times looked overmatched in that game. And this was at home in Knoxville that this happened, and I, along with, I'm sure, if anybody else who follows college football would definitely have penciled Tennessee to win that game easily, and it didn't happen. And Tennessee's got a lot of issues, and plus they've got to host BYU this week, and BYU certainly, of course, is going to be a much better team than Georgia State, you would think. So, um, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee lost this week, and that their fans are, and then it's going to be a lot of. A lot of discussion going in Knoxville, a lot of disappointment if that team starts 0-2. I think a lot of Tennessee fans were expecting this to be a better year 2 under Jeremy Pruitt, and it's gotten off to a terrible start. Losing that opening game was about the worst thing imaginable, and if they get off to an 0-2 start, you're looking at a Tennessee team that's going to be struggling just to win enough games just to be bowl eligible.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand, why that happened. It wasn't, like an outcoached or just outplayed thing. It was like they were not prepared. Pruitt did not prepare these guys enough to go out there and beat a team like that. And I don't know why. I don't know what you can chop that up to, or what the cause of that is. But that's something a lot of SEC fans were kind of upset about. That was able to happen. And with a guy like Jeremy Pruitt, I mean, you see people talking about him becoming the successor of Alabama or the successor of Nick Saban and things like that. And then you watch this happen. Everybody talked him up to be a decent coach, one that could be top of the SEC, and then something like this happens. So very wacky upset there for Tennessee there, or I should say Georgia State. That was a very, very crazy game. I didn't get a chance to watch any of that game, really. I just saw the score afterwards. But, it appears to me that Tennessee, played like crap. It appears to me they just didn't play physical enough. And I guess that's really what it comes down to. This was a time where an SEC team just did not perform as physical as they should, or they're coached up to be.
And they just looked unprepared. And Georgia State wasn't doing anything, totally surprising. They do what a lot of teams do now. They do a lot of RPO stuff. A lot of the offense centered around the quarterback, and they, weren't running anything that I'm sure that they haven't seen other teams run. It's a similar offense, but for whatever reason, Tennessee just, at times they just couldn't stop them. It was really kind of it was embarrassing. If I was a Tennessee fan, I would have been embarrassed.
Yeah, but especially that was at Rocky Top. So if you're there and you're watching that as a fan, as a student, especially, yeah, you do have to feel a little bit embarrassed that your team was able to lose to somebody like Georgia State. Yeah, that's uncalled for. So hopefully they're able to repent for that, but they're not going to hear the last of that entire season. It's going to affect them way down the road, even in December. So that that's something that just upset a lot of SEC fans. So yeah, that was bad. Another one that doesn't really have anything to do with the SEC though, just an upset that I saw that I want to include here was the FSU one. I mean, we got to talk about the FSU upset with Boise State. So FSU, coming off a season with Willie Taggart, who some would declare that he's not a good coach at all. Last year, FSU fans had the hashtag Fire Taggart. And I think now is kind of the country should be unanimous on why that was on why that's kind of prevalent in the FSU community. I don't know now what they're going to kind of use as their narrative to say, to defend Taggart, because really nothing after this can be defended for Taggart. But basically, last year FSU went 5-7. This year they come right out of the gate against Boise State, and they got upset by Boise State 36-31. They had an 18-point lead, I believe, and they gave it away to the Broncos in a way that was unorthodox for an FSU team. They just did not play good enough defense. These guys were able to, with Hank Bachmeier, true freshman QB, was able to come in and just throw some passes that shouldn't have been completed at all. This guy is not, like a Trevor Lawrence or Tua type guy, but these were wide open, uncontested passes. There were runs where the D-line didn't even, try to pinch together, try to pull something, try to stuff the run. Things really evaporated really quickly for FSU. I don't know if they ran out of gas or whatever it may be, but something bad happened. And if I was an FSU fan, I would be, embarrassed as well, just like Tennessee.
There are a couple of tidbits that came out today in the article in regards to that particular game. First of all, Willie Taggart has already come out and making excuses about his team's performance, which is the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do when you lose a game like that is to focus on some of the areas you didn't perform well in, and assuring people that you can work hard to correct the issues, and that the team will be better starting with the next game. But he came out today and actually said that the reason why Florida State lost was because his players were dehydrated.
Dehydrated.
Yeah.
In Florida. Okay.
He blamed dehydration. Well, let's see. It's you're playing a day game in Tallahassee. The heat index is probably around 100 degrees or so. Yeah. I sure by the third or fourth quarter, they probably were dehydrated. But the players on the other side, Boise State, their players were probably dehydrated too.
So who plays the best, under dehydration, under those challenges? Because everybody faces the same challenges.
I mean, Florida State is at home. They're used to these conditions. They should have been able to weather it and endure those conditions much better than a team that traveled all the way across the country from a cooler, more mountainous climate. That should have been an advantage to Florida State, and according to Willie Taggart, apparently it was not. And going on that same line as well, one of Florida State's offensive linemen was quoted also stating that the team wasn't as conditioned as they should have been, saying backing up that theory that Florida State is not a well-conditioned team, which there's no excuse for that. And he also was quoted as saying, "No, we weren't prepared. I wasn't prepared. We all weren't prepared."
Now, when you look at FSU, like I just said when I was talking about Willie Taggart, right? So I'm an SEC fan, and I mean we're both SEC fans, and we don't particularly watch ACC teams just for the heck of it, and love ACC teams, but I actually like FSU. I've actually always liked FSU and the culture they have there and things like that, especially when Jimbo was there. He was able to, get things done. When you go from Fisher to a guy like Willie Taggart is, not only is he destroying the football program at FSU right now, he is destroying the entire culture over there. A student over there should be embarrassed over what has happened in Tallahassee. I mean, they got to get somebody else in there. They have to get somebody else in there if they want to win some games.
Willie Taggart won't be the head coach at Florida State after this season.
Definitely not.
If he makes it through the season. I mean, unless you see some kind of drastic improvement, which I don't see that happening. I mean, the game Saturday was just a continuance of all the issues that the team went through last year and all the people that were criticizing Florida State's performance and criticizing. First of all, you can blame this problem on Jimbo Fisher. He somehow left Florida State, left a team that was not as talented as what he enjoyed through most of his tenure there. Left kind of a mess. You have problems with players. You got discipline issues. You got some issues where the last couple of recruiting classes that Fisher had were not as good as what he had his first few seasons at Florida State. So I think you're dealing with players with some discipline issues. You're dealing with a lack of talent in some areas. Their offensive line play at Florida State has been dreadful. It has been for the last 2 or 3 years. And that's one of their main problems that they're having as far as performing. But yeah, I would be very surprised if Willie Taggart was the head coach after this season.
He won't be. I think when you look at all the coaches on the hot seat, which we've talked about before, you got Gus Malzahn on there. He's probably, we'll get into that later, but he's probably, down the list now after that win. But if you looked at all the coaches on the hot seat right now, I think Willie Taggart, for me at least, has to go up to number one. If you're going to fire a coach right now, Willie Taggart is the number one person you have to fire. That guy, like I said, he's going to ruin FSU's football program. He's going to run it into the ground, and it's salvageable. Mind you, it's salvageable if somebody can get in there and fix it. I don't know who. There's no coach right now that's free that says, "Oh, okay, I might pick up FSU's program." They're going to need some help. They're going to need some kind of new guy in there that understands, this system. They're going to need somebody that understands these players, that understands the culture over there, somebody that can, scheme offensively and defensively, because from what I've seen with Willie Taggart, he does neither. I don't know if he calls plays offensively or defensively, but he's definitely not a defensive coach.
No, he's not. His background is offense. That's, of course, he was the head coach at South Florida, and one of the main reasons that he left there to be the head coach at Oregon was because of his offensive background. So that's where he has his experience at as far as being an assistant coming up through the ranks. That's why he was chosen to replace Jimbo Fisher at Florida State, because he does have a reputation of having teams that are able to move the ball and put a lot of points on the board. But Florida State, what they need is a coach who, number one, is a disciplinarian who's going to work his kids and make sure that they're well conditioned, that they're well prepared to play games. And number two, they need a coach who does have an offensive background. I mean, these days, you have to. I mean, you can't.
It's hard to be a coach without an offensive background.
You can't have a head coach that is a defensive-minded coach and doesn't put your offense in a position where they can be successful. Taggart's an offensive coach, but you got to be able to recruit the right players. You got to be a good recruiter, and then you've got to discipline your players. And it looks like that right now in Tallahassee, that's sadly lacking.
Well, after talking about this narrative, I'll set you up another one. If Jimbo Fisher does not put, if it's not at least a one score separation with him and Clemson when they play, if it's not, if it's over 7 points, Jimbo Fisher should have stayed at FSU. If he is not going to come at Texas A&M and completely ball out in the second year, he's already had 1 year. If he doesn't come out the second year and completely ball out and put pressure on Clemson and say, "Hey, we're here like to get rid of you. We're here to destroy you. We're another SEC team that can beat you." If he does not do that, if he doesn't put at least just a little bit of pressure on Clemson, this is a narrative where we can say, yeah, he should have definitely stayed at FSU, and it's uncalled for, just the way that he ruined a program like that, by leaving. I mean, you can chalk it up to a lot of things why why FSU has declined in the way it did, sadly. Chalk it up to the Chick-fil-A kickoff game with DeAndre Francois and, Alabama getting that lick on him that, injured his leg. There's a lot of things, but I think mainly after Jimbo Fisher, was to take take his leave from FSU, it started to, decline heavily. Now it's almost to the point of beyond repair. We got to get somebody else in there, for FSU to start winning games again like they should be. If I was an FSU fan, I'd be generally mad too. I know a lot of these guys are. A lot of these FSU fans are calling for, some repercussions and things like that. And, Willie Taggart's got to win out besides, I think they play Clemson again this year, right? So, besides that game, they have to win out. If he's not going to be, he's still going to be on the hot seat, but if he wants to be lowered on that hot seat a little bit. So that's that. That was a decent narrative this week. Kind of sad narrative for FSU, but hopefully they get, that all fixed up for week 2. All right, so moving on. I guess we can go ahead, since I mentioned it, in the last topic, the Oregon and the Auburn game. I guess we can talk about that one.
Okay.
So Oregon and Auburn this weekend was supposed to be, the best game this weekend. It's supposed to be the game of the week. It's supposed to be the game that everybody was looking forward to watching, and I think, it was, unless you're, an Alabama fan. Because Auburn was able to pull some Auburn luck and topple Oregon in a I don't even have the score in front of me. If you have a score, you can.
It was 27-21, I believe.
Oh yeah, because it was a walk off. So yeah, that game was aggravating to a lot of fans. Number one is because it seemed like Auburn was just getting bailed out in so many situations on third down, fourth down, whatever it was. I think you saw that ultimately when Bo Nix underthrew that last pass for Auburn to go ahead and get in there for a touchdown. That was a game where I said Auburn really should not be here. I don't know how they're here. I don't know how Oregon's let them up this far. But as much as one can hate Auburn and really question how they're able to do things, you really have to say, okay, wait a minute. I think Oregon's defense could have played a little bit better here, and they definitely could have. Bo Nix is not a guy that's going to come in and be a Heisman. He's not a guy that's going to come in and be the best quarterback in Auburn history. This guy's a guy that's definitely, that can do things better than their past few quarterbacks can. He's not a guy that's going to sit there and throw screens all day and run around on 1st and 10 and run for 5 yards. He's a guy that can actually pass the ball a little bit. He can move around. He can definitely use his legs. He's got some arm strength to him as well. But I think what we saw against Oregon was just the fact that Oregon could not stop any of the classic Auburn tricks. They just had no incentive to kind of get in there, put their nose up in somebody and tackle, get turnovers and things like that. And then a couple times on offense, they really couldn't capitalize on them, getting a turnover or, getting the ball back from Auburn. They couldn't capitalize on any of that. I honestly, you don't really know who to kind of put this on, but for me, it's definitely not, Auburn. It's definitely not because Auburn was more physical than Oregon for me, because they weren't. I think Oregon was a more physical team. Somehow Auburn was able to, come away with the W, and I can chalk it up to that pass Bo Nix underthrew to, the wide receiver in the end zone. So that was pretty aggravating to see Auburn just kind of move up like that without even trying. They really got lucky in that game.
Auburn, over the years, they just have a knack for winning these kind of games when they look at times like they don't have a chance or they're not playing well. Somehow at the end, they always seem to figure out a way to win, and that's what happened Saturday. And you could look at both teams and point out some things that they didn't do well or something they could have done better. At least especially in Oregon's case, Oregon had, of course, twice they had the ball inside Auburn's 10-yard line. On 2 possessions, came out with 0 points. And then when they seemingly had the momentum, they had gone up 21-6 in the third quarter. It looked like that they were getting ready to maybe put the game away, and all of a sudden after that, their offense did basically nothing really. You know, Auburn, their of course their strong point this year was going to be their defense, based on the experience and the talent they have on that side of the ball. At times, particularly in the first half, they looked a bit overmatched. You didn't see their defensive line making plays, putting a lot of pressure on Oregon's quarterback. But it looked like from the point where Oregon went ahead 21-6, it looked like Auburn's defense pretty well took over. So credit them for making some adjustments and slowing down Oregon's offense from that point on. And as far as Auburn, because of their defense, that's going to give them a chance to win every game they play. Bo Nix will get better. I mean, you take a kid who's a true freshman, his very first game, playing on national television at Jerry World in that environment. He played like a freshman, but obviously the guy's got some talent. He made some good throws. He made some bad ones. He had a couple of picks in the first half. But Auburn, they got a couple games here where they got a chance to work on some things and get better, and I suspect they'll improve on what we saw Saturday. But if you're an Auburn fan, you gotta be breathing a sigh of relief and say, okay, well we pulled that one out, we won that, and I think you have to be somewhat encouraged. But we'll have to see how much they improve on the next couple of games, because then after that, Auburn's got some tough games coming up here in a few weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how they do from this point on.
I do have to admit, if I was an Auburn fan, I would be so hyped about Bo Nix. I mean, that is it's just such a great situation for them to have a quarterback that's different from their past two quarterbacks. That's a son of an Auburn quarterback. That's a guy that has been an Auburn fan since birth and wanting to play, quarterback for Auburn, since forever. It's amazing to have somebody like that hometown hero. And that's awesome. That's something that if I was an Auburn fan, I'd be very hyped up about. And hopefully that Auburn crowd, can take them far this season. That's something that, Auburn's gonna ride into the sunset this year, even if they don't get into the CFP or whatever. Definitely is something that they can look forward to. True freshman, that's gonna be amazing to watch. Like I said, hometown hero situation. You got a fan base like Auburn. Those guys get pretty crazy. When you got a coach like Gus, who is on the hot seat this year, he can take you places if you're somebody like that. He doesn't have the experience, we would say, in developing quarterbacks, and neither is he good at it at all. But this guy looks like he's really already developed, and hopefully he can develop himself, because I like the Bo Nix story here. It's looking pretty good. Hopefully he's able to take Auburn places. I don't know. I like the whole situation they have going on there. I know Auburn fans are happy. They got to be. And that was a decent game. Like, that was a fun game to watch. Like I said, kind of surprising that Auburn was able to get the victory there. But yeah, that's whatever. That's how it is, I guess, in NCAA football. So yeah, that was the Auburn and Oregon game. Sadly, for people that are not Auburn fans. So another thing that I would like to mention as well, a big topic, South Carolina on Saturday lost to North Carolina 24-20, and their starting quarterback Jake Bentley has a foot injury that will sideline him indefinitely. Ryan Helinski, their freshman backup QB, will take over the starting job. Beginning in Saturday's game against Charleston Southern. So that's something to look at. If you're a South Carolina fan, that's something I'd be very scared of, especially after a loss like that. Now, what you're probably going to see out of this guy is probably just enough. I think I don't know much about this kid, but I know that he was ranked number 66 in the ESPN 300, number 4 pocket passer, number 11 player in California by ESPN recruiting. Those are the stats we have on him. Now, as for his physicality, as for his intangibles, we don't know. We don't know if this guy's going to come out and, throw some screens and rack up 500 yards, or if this kid's going to go out and, get sacked 4 times and throw some picks, and we have no idea. But the fact that happened in South Carolina is terrible. That's, week 1. That is the worst thing that could ever happen to you in week 1. So South Carolina fans, haven't heard much out of him personally about this week, but I'd be very, very scared, very, very sad, very upset if I was a South Carolina fan. That's bad. Sorry about that, for Jake Bentley. We're all, disappointed that had to happen to him. Started 33 games for the Gamecocks. Got injured on Saturday. But when he did play, he completed 16 out of his 30 passes for 142 yards. He had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So he did pretty good besides those 2 picks. 16 out of 30 is not, really good at all, but he was able to get that touchdown, and overall, he's their best quarterback, senior. So it sucks for him to go down the way he did, especially in that loss. Even though Will Muschamp said it's not on one person on Sunday during his press conference. But yeah, it's something to look forward to as a narrative-wise. Obviously not something to look forward to because that's a very unfortunate situation. But narrative-wise, maybe we'll see something out of this backup that we haven't seen before. Maybe it'll be a kind of a backup story, come out after the starter's injury and balled out. That's all we can hope for South Carolina, though. So, that's pretty unfortunate for them.
Yeah. And not only that, South Carolina's got to host Alabama in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that game before the season started, some were already calling it probably one of Alabama's toughest games, probably the second toughest game for Bama in the regular season. But now, after this, I honestly don't see it being any different than a Duke game for Alabama.
It'll be different. South Carolina is definitely a step up in talent from a Duke, and you are playing in their home stadium. Of course, the last time Alabama played a game at South Carolina, they lost as the number 1 ranked team in the country, which was back in 2010. However, that South Carolina team also ended up winning 11 games that year. This South Carolina team will not come anywhere close to that. Alabama, just saying that they're a much more talented and deeper team than South Carolina is. Better coached as well. They should be able to go in and win that game comfortably. This new quarterback that they'll have, obviously, is a guy that's got some talent, some ability. He wouldn't be as highly ranked if he was coming out of high school if he wasn't. Remains to be seen how ready he's going to be to step in and play quarterback. So I still wouldn't say Alabama to go in there and just blow them out necessarily, but I think Alabama should win that game comfortably. We can talk about that more in depth when it gets closer to that time.
When it gets here, obviously. But I think that's, the question that we all want to see. The narrative is, can this guy step up? Helinski, can he, step up and be the guy that they need him to be to, go ahead and, try to salvage what they have left, especially after a big loss like that.
Yeah. Of course, Muschamp, another coach who's also now squarely on the hot seat, you can throw Jeremy Pruitt in that fire as well.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest kind of unfortunate narrative this weekend. That is a big hit of sadness for anybody, watching football. Hate to see it. But, moving on, I think something that gets you pretty cheered up if you're a Justin Fields fan was his stats on Saturday. Was it Saturday? I don't even remember if it was Saturday or Sunday. Saturday. Okay, yeah. His stats on Saturday. Basically, Justin Fields tore up the football field. He went insane. He went absolutely crazy. He had 234 yards. He had 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He attempted 25 passes, completed 18. So 18 out of 25. Completion percentage was 72%. It's pretty decent for Justin Fields.
He also had a 98-yard touchdown pass as well.
Yeah, 98-yard touchdown pass. So, that's something you really have to look at and say, wow, I don't know who's going to be, who are we going to put in the lead here? Because when I was watching Justin Fields play, I was like, this guy's crazy. This guy's probably number one Heisman right now. This is insane. He just came out of nowhere, after being a transfer from Georgia to Ohio State. He's coming now, and he's balling out on a stage like this. You got to also take into account the team that they're playing, obviously, but at the same time, these are good stats for any quarterback, especially a guy that we thought probably couldn't perform at the highest tier at all. This guy came out and did it though, and what kind of was a little bit funny to me was I was watching that and I was like, yeah, this guy's my number one Heisman pick for sure. I mean, this guy is going crazy. And then Jalen Hurts came in on Sunday night and said like hold up, like 1 second, and then he balled out. So he went even crazier than Justin Fields did. So we have two quarterbacks here that are really the same type of quarterback, the same type of guy. These guys are going to be battling each other all year, just not face to face. These guys are going to be battling to see who's going to, be in the best spot for that Heisman. Obviously, you have guys like Tua and Trevor Lawrence. You got Travis Etienne, Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. You got all these kinds of guys, but these guys are in a different category. One of these guys could actually win the Heisman if they do this every single week. These are crazy, crazy stats. That's why we're going to see them battling the whole season. This is going to be a crazy, crazy matchup for just a narrative, just for the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, whoever wins the Heisman is going to be a guy who it's just going to be a position where they can pop a lot of stats, and also it's going to be for a team who's going to be at the forefront of the college playoff competition or talks. Somebody who's going to be in the spotlight all year. You got there, even though Justin Fields, even though he's really just getting his feet wet now as a quarterback at Ohio State. Because of his ability and the offense he plays in, you got to throw him there as a candidate. Of course, we all know about Tua. We know about Travis Etienne. You guys got to throw him in there after the big game he had Saturday with Clemson. I think a guy like Joe Burrow looks like LSU may have improved offense that's going to allow him to put up some big numbers. He's got to throw him in there. Of course, Jalen Hurts, obviously. And guys like that, particularly these RPO quarterbacks who handle the ball a lot, who can both throw and run. Any of these guys, if they're playing on a good team, they're going to be in that conversation for the duration of the season.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, all of these guys have the option to go out there and win a Heisman. Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts, to me, though, are in just a totally separate category. I mean, these guys are, insane. I don't know, what to even call these type of quarterbacks, but they are balling out. And you have to also look, like you mentioned, they're usually at the forefront of the, college football playoff. Last year it was Kyler Murray. He was right there in a chance to challenge Bama, which he did present a reasonable challenge to Alabama, just couldn't get it done in that playoff. So they do have to be there. And the team that I think will be there, therefore win the Heisman, is going to be Jalen Hurts. I think that Oklahoma's defense showed a little bit more improvement on Saturday or Sunday than usual. Towards the end, they started to run out of gas and give up some points and things that they shouldn't have gave up. I do think they did show a little bit of improvement there overall. I think the defense did show a little bit of being able to stuff the run. A lot of things weren't being able to, run inside. The linebacker core was decent enough. They were able to cover. I think something they have to work on is their tackling, which, a lot of teams right now, that's a problem for them as well. DBs were pretty solid, even though they had some passes that went over the top that were pretty big. But overall, I think, as a unit, they can tighten up and kind of get that defense together and, be able to fight off all of these other teams competing for that, 3 and 4 spot wherever they might end up in the playoff. Ohio State, Georgia, whatever it may be. I think Oklahoma, you can put them in there between one of those two teams. You can put Oklahoma somewhere in the playoff there because of their defense. I think their defense is going to widen up, and Jalen Hurts is going to be able to throw, for 500 yards a game with the way he's looking at now. So
yeah, I mean Oklahoma can't help to be better defensively. I mean they don't have to have a great defense. Their offense is going to be so good if they can just have even a decent or just an average defense. That would be a tremendous improvement of what they had last year. But I think you have to be encouraged if you're an Oklahoma fan. It looks like overall, I think they played pretty well. Tackling was better than what I saw some teams have over the weekend. and Houston is going to be one of the best offensive teams that they play all year. Um, so I think you got to be encouraged, and that they're only going to get better from here on out. So
Definitely. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about Oklahoma. I really like Oklahoma this year. I think definitely they're. I really hope they do get in the playoff. I really hope they're able to challenge Alabama or Clemson somewhere in there, and it's going to be very interesting to see in December, or I guess January, really how it's going to look. So yeah, that is that. That was the Oklahoma game. Very very exciting for college football fans. So yeah, I mean, I guess after that we really just have a bunch of little games here and there. I can mention the Alabama game real quick, even though that was very uninteresting unless you're an SEC fan. Alabama played Duke. Alabama's rated number 2 right now, ranked number 2. So that was 42-3 game. Tua was able to light up the field and put himself in the conversation with Jalen and Justin Fields as well. Although he did have the best stats for any quarterback this season already. Tua is the number 1 quarterback based on stats already against Duke, which is not saying much because Duke has a kind of weak defense, but they're decently strong enough for it to present a little bit of a challenge for the early on Alabama offense, but. Alabama was able to get it done. Obviously, 42-3. If you're an Alabama fan, you're probably saying we didn't play good enough because that's kind of the culture you're put under there. But yeah, 42-3 in that game. Tua's brother Talia took his first snap and was able to hand off a touchdown run to Jerome Ford with his first snap, who's actually a local here in Tampa. So that was pretty cool to see. Jerome Ford, he's probably going to be, the future of the Alabama offense is what I would say. This guy's going to be somebody you're going to see for a while there. And another thing I like to mention, definitely, and this is very important for the SEC and really all of college football, is after the Dylan Moses announcement that he was injured, everybody kind of, went crazy and said, okay, well, I think, there's no chance Alabama can beat Clemson now. They don't have this linebacker help. They don't have, people supporting in the middle. What are they going to do? And everybody, kind of assumed they're going to have to rely on these 2 freshman linebackers who are going to have to come in and they're going to have to, be as good as Dylan Moses was. They're going to have to command the offense or the defense, and who's it going to be? So, freshman named Shane Lee comes in as a linebacker and absolutely dominates Duke. I mean, this guy did insane. I know they're obviously playing Duke without Daniel Jones, but still, for a true freshman linebacker, this guy went absolutely insane. This guy named Shane Lee, he's 240 pounds. Yeah. He's a DT with the legs of a linebacker.
Yeah, if you see Shane Lee play, just think Dante Hightower.
Exactly.
Same type player, same type build.
He has the strength of a defensive tackle. He can get in the middle, stuff the run, prevent runs from getting to the second level of the field. At the same time, we saw he was able to track down and chase down many of Duke's little screen plays, little dink and ducks here and there. He was able to get from the middle of the field all the way to the sideline and push some guys out of bounds. He has the strength. He has the speed. He has everything he needs to succeed Dylan Moses here and kind of, replace him for the time being. Alabama fans are in a very, very good situation with linebackers here. This guy's going to be the future as well. That's what I've been saying. I've been posting on Twitter about this guy recently, but this guy is the future of Alabama defense. You're going to see his name up in lights by far. This guy's an NFL caliber player and a NCAA Hall of Famer type player. This guy is going to be absolutely insane. Alabama is going to thrive off of him for these next few years that he's here. He's going to be an absolute truck on the defense.
Yeah.
Very lucky to have him as an Alabama fan.
Yeah, I think he looks like he's going to be extremely good. And of course, like I said, with the injury Alabama had in fall camp, talking about Dylan Moses, talking about some of the other players that injured, people thinking, well, it's going to cause a lot of problems for us. I mean, this is what Alabama does. When they have a player that goes down, they have another talented player ready to step in. May not be a player that has a lot of experience or any experience, but it's somebody that's been groomed for the situation, somebody who's going to be highly recruited and is going to have some talent and ability. And that's what Alabama does. That's they recruit all these high-profile, highly rated players to come in, and they're groomed for these situations. Saban recruits guys, and he expects them to come in and compete for spots and play right away. He doesn't like the redshirt guys. and he doesn't believe in doing that. And sometimes they do that out of necessity, or for one reason or another. But he has never had any reservations about throwing true freshmen out there on the field. I mean, Alabama had 3 true freshmen start on their defense Saturday, and every year Alabama has at least a couple of these guys that they usually end up starting the season as starters. And as the season goes along, they'll have more of those guys that'll step in and play significant roles. So it's not a huge deal. And Alabama's got whatever issues or whatever growing pains they may go through. They've basically got 4 more games worth of games to kind of work those issues out. They got New Mexico State this Saturday. Then you got a game at South Carolina. You got Southern Miss at home. And then you got a game against Ole Miss. Alabama should win all those. So you got 4 games where these guys got a chance to get experience and to grow up. And whatever issues they might have as far as learning the defense and whatever growing pains they go through, they've got that many games to get through it until they get to the next game that Alabama fans are going to have to be worried about, and now that's probably the game against Texas A&M.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of Alabama fans on Twitter, especially, I was there kind of monitoring what they were saying during the game. I know a lot of people before were worried about Texas A&M, having an experienced quarterback now, having somebody like Jimbo that can call good plays and get an offense running, getting offense in a position where they can score. It's reasonable for Alabama fans to be worried about Texas A&M when you don't have an experienced linebacker core. But after watching what we watched, I know it was against Duke, but after watching what we watched there, being an Alabama fan, you should be pretty confident now going up against anybody. I'm talking anybody. Clemson, Georgia, Texas A&M, whoever it may be, they should be confident because Shane Lee, I just can't get enough of this dude. I mean, this dude's going to be next level defensive player. He's able to sack the quarterback, be in coverage, speed up, whatever he needs to do. His pursuit is amazing for somebody of his size. So you shouldn't be worried anymore as an Alabama fan. You should not be worried. Nobody here that was talking about Dylan Moses' injury and worried about his injury should be worried anymore. This is something to be very happy about as an Alabama fan.
And one thing to remember too, people look at it and say, well, they played Duke. Well, Duke, is a team that on a regular basis has been going out and winning 7, 8, maybe even 9 games a year sometimes. David Cutcliffe is one of the best coaches in college football. Doesn't get recognized for it, probably like he should because of where he coaches at and the conference that he coaches in. But he gets guys and coaches them up, and he's very good at disciplining players and getting them to play well and play their assignments. Very good teaching the fundamentals. So I mean that Duke team, they'll end up having a pretty decent team. They're going to be a little bit lacking on offense. Their defense is probably going to be better than what people are going to be wanting to give them credit for, considering they got 42 points Saturday. But if you look at Duke, did a pretty good job of consistently putting pressure on Tua when he was passing. So they did a pretty good job of that. They did a really good job. The only Alabama really didn't have any success much running the football towards the latter part of the game when they were probably getting kind of tired of being on the field for so long. But it wasn't until maybe sometime early in the fourth quarter where Alabama even broke 100 yards rushing. So that Duke team is that's a better team than I think people are probably willing to give them credit for right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you play somebody like Alabama and you get blown out by Alabama, it's not a situation where people are like, calling you bad because you got blown out by Bama. I think it's the fact that they were only able to score 3 points, and now people are just kind of calling them out and not giving them any credit. But yeah, I agree. Duke is an actual decent team, able to challenge Alabama, especially in the beginning. But you have to understand that Alabama will just get it done against anybody they play that is not 100% physically better than every player on Alabama's side of the field. So that's for Duke, even though you have that loss to Alabama, I'd still look forward to the rest of the season as Duke. I'd still look forward to seeing how you're gonna progress offensively without Daniel Jones, and build off of what happened on Saturday. So it's a pretty good situation, definitely for Alabama fans on that defense, and definitely for Duke in general. They have things to build off of. When you play Alabama, there's not much you can do. You might just have to take it as a fan, but. Duke fans, you get and Duke coaching and Duke players. Just overall, the football program has a lot to build on. So that's something pretty cool for Duke. So congrats to them for having options after being beat by Alabama. Most of the time, most of these guys that get beat don't really have a lot of things to build off of, and it's kind of downhill from there. But Duke definitely has room to improve. Excited to see what they do for the rest of the season. And as for some other narratives throughout the weekend, there was a game last night that I watched. I think everybody that was really interested in football at all watched it. Monday Night Football with Notre Dame and Louisville. And that was a pretty solid game, in my opinion. I would say that overall, being just a fan of football in general, that was a fun game to watch. But one thing I will say is, out of the gate, Notre Dame did not look as good as everybody paints them out to be. I remember last year I was at the Alabama and Louisville game in Orlando, the kickoff, and Alabama was able to kind of blow out Louisville. I mean, Louisville didn't really get anything on Bama, and this is a situation you look at now. Where Louisville was able to, put some points on Notre Dame and almost take it to the wire. Luckily, for Notre Dame, they were able to kind of hang still on defense and kind of, not let Louisville, progress or score on, a couple of drives, which ultimately got Notre Dame the win. But I guess you can chalk that up to first week jitters as well. But yeah, that's kind of what I was saying when I saw Notre Dame's defense being very weak at the beginning. And same thing with Louisville, both their defenses. I said, well, Notre Dame's defense is weak, but they're going to get better. That's what these teams in the top 10 do. They get better as time progresses. As the game progresses, they find ways to wrap up the offense and get better. And I also said Louisville's won't. That's why Notre Dame is going to get the win. It ended up being the exact scenario. Notre Dame's defense significantly improved. Louisville's did not. Notre Dame was able to pull ahead and get the win. So
yeah, I mean that's what good teams do. They not sometimes they don't get off to a good start, but they kind of make adjustments and figure out and they figure out a way to take over the game and win. That's what Notre Dame did. They should have. They're the better team. They're the more talented team, more experienced team. You got a Louisville team that has a first-year coach, a guy who's a pretty good coach. He's out of Appalachian State for a long time, and they've had a pretty good program over the years. And Louisville in time will get better, and he should be able to build a good program at Louisville. But right now, Louisville they're not a good football team. I wouldn't say that they're any better than probably the Louisville team that Alabama faced at the beginning of last season. You got a quarterback who has RPO ability, who is probably a much better runner than he is a passer from what I saw. Louisville defensively is not good at all. But like I said, it's the first game. They're playing a good Notre Dame team. So you expect them to improve and get better. And I'm sure Notre Dame will as well. But, I've heard some Notre Dame fans trying to build that victory for more than what it was. That's really a game that Notre Dame should have took over early, and that should have been a blowout. That should have been like a 49-10 kind of game. Both teams made a lot of mistakes. Notre Dame let Louisville stay in the game way longer than what they should have. So both those teams have a lot of work to do, but Notre Dame did end up winning the game comfortably, and so
I mean, overall, I think things to build on for Louisville. I think the biggest thing that I would say that I noticed was Juwan Pass, right? So this guy, obviously not even anywhere close to being a top tier quarterback in college football, but uh, he definitely has potential to be, another Lamar Jackson. This guy was really good on his feet and really good, throwing the ball. Didn't have any passing touchdowns, but he's able to rack up 134 yards passing. Attempted 27, completed 12, but the ones that he did complete, some of those were contested balls that he was able to get out. And also on his feet, he had 67 yards rushing. That's out of 16 attempts. So he had 4.2 average yards rushing for a quarterback. If you can do that all the time, 4 yards rushing, that's really good. I mean, if you're a quarterback and you're rushing every time, you're getting 4 yards. That's pretty good for somebody that can throw the football as well. And he had 2 touchdowns rushing as well. So that's something to build off of. I know this guy is. I'm pretty sure he's a true freshman, right? This Juwan Pass guy?
No, he's not a true freshman. No.
Oh no, he's been here since 2017. So he's not. So yeah, I was thinking of the other dude on their
He
backup.
transferred there from somewhere. He was there last year. So no, he's not a true freshman, but not sure how much he played for them last season. I think he did play for them some, but I don't think he has a ton of experience. One thing in his defense, though, I think he did much better passing the ball when he was under pressure, when he was being blitzed, than he did when he had time to actually find receivers. So that's
And a lot of these guys are kind of like that now. You see Pat Mahomes. It's like, not saying that he's not good when he has time to throw the ball, but a lot of these new quarterbacks only throw while running. Now, I mean, that's kind of how Brett Favre was. You'd rather ever see Brett Favre kind of sitting there. It's kind of like an anxiety thing. It's kind of like these guys could only complete really good passes, almost off their back foot or running at full speed or whatever it may be. This guy's kind of the same way. It was either, he was going to dump it off or, heave it downfield, or he was going to take off. It's one of those things. And that's kind of what separates these type of guys from your Jalen Hurts type of guys.
well, they're not brought up to be pocket passers. They're more comfortable when they're able to use their feet and move and create. That's what these RPO guys do. Even guys who aren't necessarily RPO but play in spread type offenses, that's what they do. They're going to move around in the pocket. They're going to slide out of there, roll left or right, and just keep the play alive as long as they can until they find somebody that they can get the ball to.
Yeah, I mean that's really what he did, and it's kind of a shame he wasn't able to. For Louisville, kind of a shame that he wasn't able to capitalize on that more, and kind of get the dub there with those 2 drives that he should have. But like I said, Notre Dame defense was going to tighten up. It was just prophetic the way that they were going to tighten up, and they did. They stopped him from doing these things that a lower tier quarterback would do. Couldn't get any passes completed after that. Couldn't really rush much anymore. Was getting kind of blitzed down the middle pretty hard, and you saw him go down a couple times. So yeah, his end definitely came during that game. But yeah, no. Overall, I mean, the guy was pretty good. He has a lot of things to build off of. I thought he was a true freshman, but apparently he's been playing since 2017, which means I guess he only has a year of eligibility left if he's been playing since 2017, 2018. Yeah. So I guess a year, unless he tries to go to the NFL or whatever. So yeah, I mean, this guy, if you're Louisville, definitely as the season goes on, has a lot to progress on, a lot to build off of. And so yeah, I mean, that's something you got to take away. And Louisville did a decent job of trying to topple a top 10 team like that. They did a pretty decent job. It kind of sucks for Notre Dame; they weren't able to shut them down so easily. But yeah, Louisville definitely has something to build off of regarding the offense. Definitely defense, obviously, but. Yeah, that was the last game of the weekend. So, unless you have anything you want to cover,
Not really. I think we hit. Excuse me. I think we hit a lot of the main stories from this past weekend. A lot of the major games. Focus on. I know this upcoming week. Probably not as many big games on the schedule. You got a lot of mismatches, particularly among teams in the top 25. But we do have a couple of games that are going to be really good that I thought we could touch on real quick, talking about those. Of course, coming up Saturday afternoon, you got Texas A&M playing at Clemson, which is going to be a big game. SEC versus ACC. Texas A&M, a team that looked pretty good playing an overmatched Texas State team, which you would expect them to look good playing a team like that. Clemson, of course, they opened their season Thursday night against Georgia Tech at home. Had some issues, didn't look real sharp at times. Had a few turnovers. But,
well, yeah, the golden boy, Trevor Lawrence, threw 2 interceptions to a Georgia Tech defense that weren't Georgia Tech scheduled interceptions. He threw a wide open pass pick to a Georgia Tech defender that came down and was just sitting there, just waiting for it, which shouldn't have been even thrown. But he looked directly at him and threw that ball. So that's something you got to be scared of if you're Clemson. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing Duke. I don't care if you're playing Alabama, Florida, whatever it may be. If you throw a pick like that, that's something to look at and say, I mean, 2 of them. I mean, this got to do 2 of the same kind of picks. You better be watching out for Trevor Lawrence declining any of these games. That's all I'm saying. Because Texas A&M is an SEC team that will take that and run with it. If you throw any picks to them, it's looking scary for you.
Yeah. Clemson, they didn't look real sharp. Of course, it's the first game, and all things considered, they probably had a pretty vanilla offensive attack in that game. They probably weren't trying to do too much. Probably weren't trying to show anything to Texas A&M in that game. And Georgia Tech, I'm sure, is a team they knew that they would be able to go out and beat comfortably without having to do too much. But Travis Etienne really was the big offensive player on that game. He had over 200 yards rushing. Trevor Lawrence, like you said, had a couple of picks, only 168 yards passing. Never really tried to throw the ball downfield. Most of his passes were screen or just very short to intermediate passes. Never really tried to stretch the defense. I would expect to see a lot more to that in that game Saturday. I think Clemson wins that game. I think it's going to be a 4-quarter game though.
I do too, and I think that game's going to come down to a touchdown deficit. And here's why, right? So I'll give this hot take now. I don't know. I remember if I've given it here before, but I think Trevor Lawrence is the most overrated college quarterback in the history of football ever. He is the most overrated quarterback I have ever seen in my entire life. The guy came in after Kelly Bryant had done the hard work for him in 4 games and decided now that he's the greatest quarterback to ever walk on the planet Earth. He hasn't played a single decent team besides the best team ever in Alabama that he blew out, right? So this whole situation makes no sense. Is he great because he blew out Alabama, or does he absolutely suck because he's never played a decent team besides Alabama? We don't know. All we have to say that Trevor Lawrence is the greatest quarterback ever is the fact that he blew out Alabama. So it's hard for me to produce this take and not get called, an idiot. But in my opinion, Trevor Lawrence is the most overrated college quarterback ever. He's never played a decent team. We're not even talking about Alabama because that I don't know what happened there, but that game is the only time when he's played a decent team and actually ran with it. And you can't, give me that argument and say he's the greatest college quarterback ever because he blew out Alabama. You can't tell me that and then expect me to believe that he's the greatest quarterback to ever walk the earth. This guy is not as good as every single analyst paints him out to be, and you'll see that against Texas A&M. Texas A&M is going to make him pay for everything the SEC has been, dogged on for a while. And I'm just saying that now. People think I'm crazy when I say that, but Texas A&M is not going to mess around this year. When I made my top 25 list last night, I put Texas A&M above Texas. Texas A&M is not going to mess around this year, and they're going to show that against Clemson. Trevor Lawrence is overrated, and they're going to show the world that Trevor Lawrence is overrated. They're going to be the ones to tell the world, maybe you should be looking at another quarterback. Maybe you should be looking at Jalen Hurts as better than Trevor Lawrence. But no, nobody will look at that because Trevor Lawrence was able to blow out Alabama, and let's not give it to any other Clemson player on that team. Let's give it only to Trevor Lawrence. He's the only reason why Alabama lost to Clemson. Let's give him that, and he's the greatest quarterback to ever play. Like, no, I don't think so. I think Trevor Lawrence is overrated. I think Texas A&M is going to show you that. I truly believe that Texas A&M will show you that on Saturday.
I don't think he's overrated. I think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's had very many tough tests so far early in his college career. He will be tested Saturday. It could be possibly his toughest test that he's had since he's been at Clemson, so we'll see. Another game I wanted to mention too that it should be awfully good is going to be Saturday night, and that's the game in Austin where you got LSU ranked 6th playing at number 9 Texas. LSU looked really good Saturday. Of course, playing an overmatched Georgia Southern team, but albeit a Georgia Southern team that won 10 games last year. So they were a pretty decent team that they played, and LSU just went out and took care of business and dominated. Played the Texas team. A lot of people saying that Texas is back. They got a good quarterback in Sam Ehlinger, but they are kind of like Alabama in respect. They got a position on their offense where they have a lot of attrition, a lot of injuries, and that's at running back. I know they got a player that they recently just put off their defense who's been working with the running back group. So they, I know their top 2 running backs have been out, and I think that was an issue for them in their game Saturday against Louisiana Tech. And Texas also, they've got some work to do rebuilding their defense. They lost a lot of players off last year's defense. But LSU appears to be a pretty good football team, and I think they'll go in there and win that game against Texas. Again, I think it'll be a competitive game, and I don't think it'll be as close as the Clemson Texas A&M game. I think LSU may end up winning that game by at least maybe a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it's going to kind of look like the Notre Dame and Louisville thing. You're going to kind of see one team tire out. I think it's going to be Texas, just because LSU seems to have more experience in almost every position. But this is a really good matchup for me, though. Definitely, just personally, because when we watch LSU and Texas, we never, what do we never see? We always see good defense, but we never see quarterbacks that are top tier. But both of these guys are Heisman hopefuls. So it's gonna be fun watching 2 teams that have really good defenses battle it out on offense and see who has the most experience there. But the biggest thing is the battle of the DBs. Both of these schools are battling for what is now called DBU. We know LSU is DBU. Being an SEC fan, we both know LSU is DBU.
Yeah.
But Texas is going to come out and try to prove that they currently are DBU. And currently, they might be. They might have better DBs than LSU does right now. But I guess we'll really find that out on Saturday because these 2 quarterbacks are kind of similar in the way they play, kind of similar in their stats. So I guess the DBs will definitely be tested here, and this really will be a DB matchup. Who has the better DBs will kind of take this game away. But I do think it's going to be LSU, and I do think it's going to be probably by over a touchdown. I think Texas is going to end up running out of gas, and LSU is going to have to put it away by running out the clock, and that's probably what's going to happen. They're just going to chew it out. Texas is going to run out of gas, and yeah. So looking forward to that one. That's going to be a good matchup, probably a best this Saturday. It's going to be a really good one. I mean, besides Clemson and Texas A&M, if you want to see Clemson lose, I mean, like I do. But so I guess if you don't have anything to add,
that's what I got.
Pretty much it. All right. Well, so I guess that's it for episode number 7. A lot of big games this past weekend. Glad we got to talk about all of them. Today we didn't really have a lot of people tune in and kind of talk to us a little bit. We had a few people here and there, but nobody really came and interacted. So I want to let you guys know that every week we're here and we're watching all the chat rooms, and you guys should definitely come in and interact with us and let us know what you want us to talk about. And overall, just kind of guide us through our podcast. Just tell us, what you want to hear. Just talk to us, ask us questions, things like that. And we'll answer them for you and, elaborate on, everything and have a good time with that. So, yeah.
But also one other thing I want to mention real quick. The NFL, of course, gets kicked off this weekend. Of course, NFL hasn't played any games yet, so that's why we just had a week's worth of college games. That's why we spent most of our time talking about it. But of course, the NFL gets kicked off this weekend. In fact, they got a game this coming Thursday night. Packers at the Bears. So
yeah, that's going to be
that'll
really
be a good
game.
one.
I mean, that's the first, really first NFL teams. I mean, going at it again. It only makes sense. This is the NFL's 100th season. The original teams going at it. It's going to be a very, very good game. Wasn't that the first Super Bowl? Was it the Bears and the Packers?
No, that would have been the
Packers
and the Chiefs.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. That makes sense then. I mean, but still, the Bears are an old team. Old test for the Packers, too. So these guys are rivals. And for them to start out the season like that, I know last year it was, Atlanta and Philadelphia starting out the season, which was kind of a crappy game because, Philadelphia is able to beat my Falcons. But,
yeah. We got a few good games coming this weekend in the NFL. You got the Steelers at the Patriots. That comes up Sunday night. Should be a good one. Yeah. You got the Giants playing at the Cowboys. That could be interesting.
Just a battle of the suggy teams, I guess, that have one offensive player now.
A couple other ones, but yeah, just wanted to mention that we were. Like I said, we'll spend a lot more time talking about NFL next week too, since we'll actually have some games to talk about. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, definitely a lot more to talk about next week. We're gonna have a lot to talk about next week. I know, we said this week maybe over an hour. Because of all the stuff that we had to talk about, but next week might be even longer. So we're gonna have to, it is gonna be a lot longer. We're gonna have to figure out a way to kind of separate this. I don't know what we'll do, if we'll have like a college football podcast and an NFL podcast, or if we'll just split it up in different hours, or maybe just 2 different podcasts throughout the week. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we'll figure it out somehow. We'll kind of come around, make a solution here. Might just do a 2-hour podcast, however long it takes. So yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about next week, a lot of different narratives. Looking forward to all the games. I mean, I think we had a lot of football to watch this weekend, so it's going to be fun. So like I said, if you guys have any questions or anything, like you guys want to talk to us, interact with us about football, just our entire community, go ahead and come tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the channel in our live chat. We go live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, so any of those you can message us on and chat with. But the link to the channel is it's in my Instagram bio. Obviously, if you're here on YouTube watching it, then you're here. Come again on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Watch us, interact, and we'll talk about football with you guys and have a great time. I also do have the Discord the Discord link in my description for all the videos. I don't know why it took so long to get out, but yeah, if you guys want to join the Discord to communicate with us, is the best way to communicate, back to back and get an answer really fast with our entire community. Go ahead and join that Discord. It's basically just a little community with a bunch of different servers you can go ahead and talk to us in, and we'll get back to you, right away if you message us in that. So yeah, that's that. So thank you guys for tuning in to Football Forecast number 7, and we will be back next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to talk to you guys about all the matchups this weekend. All right, I'll see you guys then. Peace.